Hello, my name is Nicole Smith. I am the Event and Communications Coordinator for Spark Niagara. We're thrilled to have you join us, and you will notice that you are on mute coming in. And the reason we do that is to try to cut back on the ambient noise when our presenter does their presentation. You will have the opportunity to ask questions. There will be time for that at the end. We do encourage you, if you want to write your questions in the chat box, we will read them and address them right at the end of the webinar. And you can write your question anytime in the chat box. I will be monitoring that as the presentation goes through to make sure that your question gets asked before we end the session. So it is my distinct and absolute pleasure to have Dr. Aftab Rizvi join us today. And he's going to speak on this very important topic on PCI DSS and provide us with all the information that we need in order to be compliant and probably so much more. So without further ado, Dr. Aftab, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, Nicole. I appreciate you invited me in your forum, and I would like to make sure that your audience and your participants get the right information. And normally what I try to do in the normal times that I try to make the session very interactive so that they can ask the questions whenever they need. However, still, I would encourage them to write as many questions as possible so that they get the right information, what they need. As we know that this is a very different time, very unprecedented time, and we have to deal with the situation which was not there before. We're trying to do things remotely. We're trying to work from homes. We are trying to avoid touching the money as well. So this is the time when there is a lot of interest in the digital currency. And we are expecting that the trend will increase so much that we'll even forget that how the real money feels like. The studies being done are showing that Australians or Canadians or UK, they are really adopting a lot on the digital currency, and the businesses who are not dealing with the systems where they accept the FPOS and credit card and all of this information, all of these methods, then they will have a lot of difficulty. And due to this pandemic, you would also notice that there are some stores who have avoided taking the cash because the concern was that it may transmit the disease. So that's why it is becoming more and more important. So we all know, and we have all seen what the credit card look like. So before I go into that detail, I would just like to give you an overview of what we do and who we are so that you can understand the context, and then also ask the questions and make sure that this is beneficial for you and your organization. So basically, this is what I would like to cover in the next 45 minutes or even less, because I would like to have more time to discuss and answer the questions which you have. So we call ourselves as information security consultants. Basically, what we do, we try to make sure that the businesses are secure and they also comply to whatever the compliance requirements are from the information security perspective, whether these are related to how to take credit cards and how to take credit card payments, or it is from the point of view that, you know, are you sure that your privacy, you complied the privacy laws by the government or different jurisdictions. So we are a global company. We started about 15 years ago in Australia, especially with relation to the PCI and all of the payment card industry sector. But we're in the compliance business, which is obviously information technology. We're not lawyers. IT, information systems compliance, and related work 25 years ago. So we are a company called QSA. QSA stands for Qualified Security Assessor, and that is the one that is basically, it is a process which has been taken by PCI Council, which is Payment Card Industry Council, and they approve certain companies so that they are the ones who can assess the security status of those organizations in relation to the payment card and confirm that yes, they are good to go, do the right, they are secure to do the business with. We also review payment applications. So that means we are the one, we try to make sure that the payment applications are not compromised, and how we do that by following certain standards, and that is called PADSS standard, which is Payment Application Data Security Standard, or the organization who does this process called Payment Application Qualified Security Assessor. And this is again an accreditation by the PCI Council, and there are a list of PCPA QSAs and QSA companies which is available on their website. PCI Council's website, you will get the link from Nicole, because that's the very important place. You can go and ask any questions and look at the information. There's FAQs, which is quite detailed. So that helps quite a lot in that scenario. Again, how security works, if we take it generally, security is basically, is not that I say today that, look guys, I have got this firewall in place, or I've got the system, and an antivirus and few things, and I've implemented few technologies, and I'm secure. No, it doesn't work like that. How it works is that we need to always be doing the risk assessments. So basically now the environment is that you need to be focused on the risk and threat management. And this is how you can maintain the posture, because every day there are new threats. Every day there are new vulnerabilities. As you know, after the COVID, there are new ways or new trends which we have seen, which are, whether these are phishing related or related to the, because people are working from home, so they are more vulnerable, and so on and so forth. So basically, we call that it has to be a risk-based approach to maintain that your organization or a business maintains the information security. So this is what we do. So we do a bunch of things, which is called threat risk and threat management, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, compromise assessments. I'm sorry, I'm using too many terminologies here, but trust me, it all boils down to that: do everything to make sure that that business is secure. And what is secure? Secure means that the business is, which is whatever the asset business has. And when we talk about the digital age, then the asset is our data, whether it's related to payment card data or it's related to the personal information data, like privacy data. That data is secure. Again, secure is so wide. What does this mean? Secure means it's confidential, because we want to keep it, that no one should know the information who doesn't require to know. So it's confidential. And the second thing is that its integrity is maintained. If we're talking of money transactions, trade here, I don't want to do a transaction of $100 and it is written in my statement as $1,000. So that I maintain the integrity of that information. So that is the first thing was security. Security means confidentiality. Second one is integrity. And the third one is availability. Availability means that I am able to use the system when I want to. So when I go to online banking site, that is working. If it's not available, it's a security threat. And you know that denial of services and all of those terminologies you've heard, that there is spam and the whole bandwidth is choked and no one is able to use the business where the legit users. So this is the challenge we have. So from our point of view, when we talk about security, at the moment we're talking of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our assets, our data, our information, whatever we call it, is important for us. So in business continuity, for example, in COVID is very important that we know how to handle these things. But I think I'll come to that later. We have offices in basically in every time zone, and right, and so sometimes it's a very good advantage, and sometimes it's a disadvantage. For example, it's 3 a.m. in Australia, but I'm up and talking to you. But this is great because you know that. But we have office in Canada as well, where there you can get help from. So we have offices in Australia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Canada, in Middle East, and also in UK. So we cover all the time zones. And we have got the resources who are very professionally qualified, and there are so many acronyms we can use. But again, it all boils down to that they know what they're doing and they can handle the security. Right. So I'm apologies in advance if it is this information which is known to you, because I have no idea of the background of the different participants, and obviously it varies quite a lot. So it's just to give you an overview. How, every one of us is doing payment transactions. So how we do that? So we go to the coffee shop. I mean, it's client is me. I go to the coffee shop. I say, okay, guys, I need a coffee. And I tap my card, or they swipe the card, or they insert the card, dip the card in the machine. These are the terminologies that they use. And then what happens to that card? And now even I use my phone, so that I use Apple Pay, and it is somehow some piece of information from my side goes to the merchant's terminal, which goes to the payment gateway, and it goes to the acquirer. Acquirer is the one who has provided that FPOS machine, or that machine which is being used at the coffee shop, to that merchant. So that there is card information or some data which is transmitted from there to the acquirer. And now most of the time you see that the card we're using is MasterCard or Visa. These could be other cards as well, like American Express and Discover and so on. But at the moment we're talking of, let's say, MasterCard and Visa. So then this information goes to the payment branch. And what payment brand does, that payment brand send this information to the issuer. Who is the issuer? The issuer is the one that issued the card to you. For example, the coffee shop is dealing with the bank, which is TD Bank. So they have provided their FPOS machine, but your card was issued by HSBC. So what will happen that this information through payment brand will be sent to HSBC. And then depending on whether it's a credit card or a debit card, then your issuer, which is your HSBC, will look at it and say, yeah, good to go. I can deduct $6, or I can deduct $100 or whatever, because I've got enough money or enough credit. And then they send the information back to payment brand, said, okay, guys, that's good. So that's sort of authorization message. And then it goes to the acquirer passes to the merchant, and then you get whatever goods you want to take. So this is a scenario where it's card present, that the card is available and you do that. Similar thing, or very similar thing, applies on the e-commerce sites like Amazon, that you present your card details, but those are the numbers you are entering in the system. It's not the it is not the card which is physically present. So this is the payment ecosystem. So basically what is happening is that we are not handling the cash, we are handling some numbers. But these numbers are very important and needs to be secured, because this can be misused. You heard a lot that the card, if it is physically given to someone, especially it happened at the even ATM machines, that the card can be cloned. So that means the information is gone and can be used by others. And basically that is not a legit transaction by you, but because they have got the information, they can misuse it. So we need to make sure that this card information is not compromised, is not copied by any unauthorized person, it's not disclosed to the people who are not required to know, and so on and so forth. So that is the challenge we have. So this is the payment card. And because of the change in technology and a lot of new applications coming, a lot of applications on the phone, mobile phone, and so on. So this challenge is increasing every day. So that means we need to be on our toes, and we need to make sure that we are the one who can defend our systems, even though there are new threats. So I can go on and on and on, but the thing is that obviously there are a limitation of time. So I would like to keep it and I leave the time for your questions to be asked to ask. So this is a standard card which everyone has seen. So there is some information which you normally see or hear, and this is the issuer name. If you can see the screen, then bank name is the issuer, that it is the bank who issued you the card, HSBC, TD Bank, or Grand Lays, or whatever the banks you deal with. EMV chip, that means all of the information uh, which is on the card is basically on the chip. Or previously, when there was no chip, then that was on the strip behind the card. Bank identification number is called BIN. So basically, we have got a 16-digit number in MasterCard and Visa, or 15-digit number for American Express. And these numbers basically depict different things. They are used for different things. So the first few numbers, which is first 6 numbers, they are called BIN, bank identification number. Like, that you've got, when you look at your bank account, then obviously you have got the branch number, you have got the account number, so that you can identify, like it's like like an address, that you have got a postcode, and then you have got the house number, and you have got a street, and so on. Similarly, cards have information that where it was issued. It was first few numbers tell you whether it's a MasterCard. For example, the first number tells you whether it's a MasterCard or a Visa. It starts with 5 or it starts with 4. And if it's American Express, it starts with 3. And then you identify that which bank is issued, so that the bins are allocated to the banks, so that you can easily identify which bank has issued this card. And then the account number, so last digits are account numbers. There is an expiry date, and there is a cardholder name. So this is the information which you see on the front of the card. And on the back of the card, you have got the magnetic strip, which contains all the data which EMV has, that is the chip has. And basically what it means that it has the information of the card. So basically the front one is only displaying the information. It is not used in the electronic transaction, to say. So this is the one, this is the place where it is communicated from. Then you just do the signature, and it's not very effective, but it is effective, that that then you are asked to confirm that it helps in confirming that when there is a card present, then you can see whether it's the right person. Or if the large transaction, you can see the ID to make sure it's the card, it belongs to the same person who is using this card. And there is another number on this side, which is very important, and this is called CVV2 or CVC2. You just, from the sake of, that is sort of a secret number which you have, and you can only use it at the time when you're doing card not present transaction. That means you're using the card on the website or any e-commerce transaction. Right, so why we are going into that much detail? The reason we are going into that detail is that this is the information which is important for us. This is the information which we need to keep it secure. And what secure means, we already explained that secure means that it should be confidential, that transaction information should be, integrity should be maintained, and it should be available, system should be available when we need to use it. So you have seen so many things and so many hacks and so many frauds and thefts and data breaches. There is absolutely no reason to go there, because it is every day. You see in the news that what has happened. So there's so much data available that this card information is being compromised, and it is compromised at all levels. It is compromised at the merchant level. That means even the McDonald's of the world and the gas stations their machines are, compromised so that they can get the data, or that if the hacker is trying to get the data in bulk, then they go to the backend systems and so on. So, so I think that everybody knows that, we need to keep this information secure, and that target at this time we are talking about is the payment card data, which we discussed. That most important part is that number, card number, which is 15-digit or 16-digit number, because that plays a very important role in every single transaction. Why they do that? It's obviously, like we know that, you can just sell it. You can use this information uh, misuse this information for money laundering. You can monetize the data. You can sell it. There are sites available, where they sell the data and they categorize the data that you need the card of what value. If the limit is only $5,000, it would be cheaper, whereas at $50,000, it would be a lot more expensive. So it depends on you that, how much money you want to spend and what type of card data you want to increase. And it may vary from $10 to $150 or so. So this is a market which exists, or it could be depending on the volume of the data. It is being advertised that we've got the proven, and trust me that they really take care of it. If you buy some data and it is wrong or somehow it's not working, they will replace the data. Say, okay, guys, so get some other information, some other card data, which is same or useful. Right. So what we do, that now we know that the challenge we have is that there is an asset, which is our information, which is our data, and we want to make sure that it is secure. So if I invent my wheel, okay, I say that, guys, this is how we need to secure. Then someone else will come in and say that, by the way, you didn't think of that risk, so please add this one. And then someone else will come, and we are using our experience and our knowledge, and we're doing that. For that purposes, what we do is that we create these standards, and we make sure that there is an organization or there are group of people who have experience, and they share that experience, and they make sure that they have got they compile all the information, and then it is used for the industry, for that particular community. So what is happening is that because this was a challenge, and MasterCard and Visa were finding that there was an issue all the time, that whether the data is secure or not secure, and different banks are securing differently, different merchants are doing different things. So there should be some sort of consistency, and then to create that consistency, it was decided that we need to have a council, which is a payment card industry security standards council. And this PCI SSC's role will be to create a standard which can be used by the whole industry. So basically, this is what it is. That PCI council was formulated by these brands, which is MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Discover, and JCB. And they say, guys, let's join our forces. Let's invest into a place where there's a central point of contact. And then we make sure that all of the information we feed here, and then we create a standard with the whole industry can get the benefit from. So PCI SSC roles was to create the standard. There were some other roles which we may go into detail, but at the moment, I think with the limitation of time, I will keep it that the role is to make sure that there is a standard, and that standard is disseminated or to the whole industry. Also, there are different, and the other role is that they have got the list of companies, they register companies who understand that how these systems are implemented, and that's what I was saying, that like we are a QSA company, so that means they approve or they accredit those companies who are qualified to do this work and qualified to do payment application reviews and so on. So the PCI Council is doing a very good role, is playing a very good role to ensure that we have got standards, and you have that same place you can go and find out who can help you with that. Assessing whether you are compliant or not compliant, or as a, advising you what you should be doing. So they have got lots and lots and lots of information and data available on their website for this type of thing. So there are now, the stakeholders who we were talking about previously. So there was a merchant, and there was a payment brand, and there was a, acquirer or a issuer, and all of those things. So there are different roles everyone is playing. So payment brand, which is MasterCard, Visa, or JCB, or they basically they have got the very big role in this whole thing, and they want to make sure that the whole system works and the whole ecosystem is compliant and people have confidence in it. So they are the one who track and they enforce these standards. So PCI Council, even though they create the standard, they maintain the standard, but they don't enforce the standard. So PCI Council will come to TD Bank that, guys, you are issuing the cards with our logo. So Visa will say, guys, are you compliant? Are you secure? So they have to make sure that they are compliant. And similarly, all the merchants they will have, Visa will ask, guys, are your merchants compliant? Are they secure? So this is how the enforcement is working. In some parts of the world, central bank, they also mandating that the payment ecosystem should be secure. So they are trying to implement the standard, because PCI DSS is considered as a standard which is very practical and found very useful. And there is a lot of input from the whole industry. So there is a lot of adoption. So this is how it is working at the moment. So brand is the one who tracks and enforce, and they are the one who penalize, or they are the one who set the compliance deadlines that when it should be completed by, and that is determined on the basis of the risk they see for the whole industry. So and they were the one also they define what merchants needs to do or service providers needs to do, and so on. So if you are a business and you are a merchant, then actually it will be enforced by the payment brand, but your bank you're dealing with, who has issued you the terminals or the FPOS machine, they will say what is your compliance requirement. So acquirer's role is to deal with the merchant, actual shop, actual e-commerce site. But eventually the reporting is done to the brand, up to the brand. And similarly, service providers, they talk to the brand. So we discussed that there is a risk. We discussed that there is what is important information for us. And then what we say, what is PCI DSS? It is pretty technical, so I would try to keep it very high level and leave it that for those who are to have questions, I can go into more detail with them. But the standard is a big standard, and I have shared a link of the PCI DSS library, PCI Council's library, where you can download the standard from. But I have also provided a copy of the PCI DSS standard, which is version 3.2.1, so that if someone is really interested, they can see exactly what requirements we're talking about. So that can be, that is readily available because with this information which I have already shared. So when I talk about PCI DSS, then the first important thing we need to understand that when it is applicable, PCI DSS standard. So one thing we understood that payment card data, that means even the card number is important to us, and that's so what it happens that PCI DSS standard revolves around that, which we call it sometimes we call it PAN, that 15 or 16 digit number. It's an account number, so it's PAN. So what we see that it is PCI DSS standard is applicable to those organizations who either store, process, or transmit card data. And that card data is PAN or the track, which is the information which is in the chip or at the back of the card at the strip, or CVV2, and all of those information. So if anyone, doesn't matter who, in any form, whether it's a paper copy or it's a backup or in the email or with the phone, if you're using an IVR, if you're either storing, processing, or transmitting card data, then you need to be compliant to PCI DSS standard. That's the thumb rule. That's the requirement. And what is it applicable to? It applicable to the systems you have, that if you have got FPOS machine connected to a server, connected to another desktop, another machine, which is keeping the data as well as keeping the receipts and doing the ledger or doing anything else, and you are doing some marketing and so on. But that means that has the card data, that has the information which you need to keep it secure. So that should be applicable. If you're an e-commerce site and you're taking the card data over the phone, if you're taking the card data on the emails or through your website, and you're storing it somewhere, so that means you're storing and processing and transmitting card data, so it is applicable on you. So all of this information, so all of those systems where either the information is stored or processed or transmitted, that should be part of the scope. So when we want to make sure that you are compliant to PCI DSS, first thing ever we need to do is to understand what is the scope of this exercise. And scope means where is card data. So just follow the trail. This is where the card input is. For example, if we have a bank, then the card input comes from the ATM machine. It goes to all the way to the back end and the core banking where the authorization is being done. So all of those systems, all of those, if we're going to a branch and teller is taking the card, then that teller, any system they're using and so on, that will be part of the PCI DSS assessment. So this is the scope. So what we need to remember, store, process, and transmit. So any organization, any system, any people, any process which is dealing with that is part of the scope for PCI DSS compliance. And benefits, I think we already discussed, and that is importance is that we want to make sure that it is secure, that it is not misused, it is not leaked, and so on. So account data which we discussed. So again, to confirm here, it's a PAN. We can store the PAN, but we make sure that when we store PAN data, it is stored unreadable. That's why you see that now you're getting the credit card statement, then you see that only first 6 or last 4 digits are readable, and then you see asterisks in between. Why we are doing that? That means we're making it difficult for anyone to guess what is the card number. So what we have done, that we have made the data not available so that it's not compromised. First 6 digit, as I said, that's a bin. It is, let's say, I mean, mostly it's publicly available information. Last 4 digit is the identification for you, but by taking the numbers out from the middle, we are making it extremely hard for someone to guess what the card number is. So we are trying to make sure that it is secure. Also, cardholder name, you can store it, yes. And it should be unreadable? No, it can be, card name can be there. Expiry date, same thing. You can store it. Obviously, service code, you can store it. But track data cannot be stored. And why it cannot be stored? Because it's too sensitive. That is used for cloning, for example. So you're not allowed to store it anywhere. If you're a merchant and you're a, let's say, coffee shop, and the card is being used on the FPOS machine, obviously you don't have any control. FPOS machine comes from the bank, and that is already being vetted, and they're already been certified for this type of activity. Whereas if you're developing your own system, then you need to make sure that while doing the transactions, you are not storing track data anywhere. Or similarly, CVV2 or PIN, the PIN is also sensitive data. So this data is divided into 2 parts. One is called cardholder data and the sensitive authentication data. So there is no way that we can store sensitive authentication data, which we call SAD, anywhere, but we definitely can keep cardholder data. I think I'm going into too much detail, which may or may not be right. So, what PCI DSS is doing, that they are revising the standard, and you see there is a history here that they started with version 1.1 in 2006, and there is a process of there is a life cycle. So every 3 years, the standard is basically uh, revalidated, or I said reissued, to make sure that it is up to it is current, and it is addressing the current threats, current landscape. So that this is where in 2018 we have got the version 3.2.1. What it covers is, this is the basic PCI DSS requirements, and it has 12 main requirements, and 12 main requirements are, you have got a copy of the standard, so obviously you can look into it. But these 12 requirements are has sub requirements, and it can go more than 200 requirements, so that it's very comprehensive standard, and it has got a lot of things which needs to be done. And these are very good controls, like, acceptable to most of the payment card industry around the globe. So that means it's well accepted, as well as proven that it helps in making sure that the data is secure. But if I go and if I look at it, basically what it's trying to do is that applying defense in depth principle for the information security. And if I take a example again, then what it's trying to do is that making sure that we apply the standard process where we show that outer environment is secure, like perimeter, we call it normally. So if the perimeter is secure, so that means that's what they do, that, you have a firewalls, and you have got all the entry points are checked or well vetted, that there is always a legit traffic and no unauthorized user there. So first thing is that we take care of the perimeter, external area, like it happens for the physical security. So that you have got the walls, and you have got the cameras and all of those things, so that who is coming in and who's going out, and what they're taking and what they're bringing in. So this is what for electronic systems, we have got the firewalls, and we have got the IDS and IPS and all of those technologies to make sure that what type of traffic is there. And then we drill down, and then we look at the application. So application means that payment card application, is it secure or not secure? So that's another thing. So this is another layer that we make sure that this is secure. And again, access level is different now. When you said who is accessing the payment application, who is the super user, what type of data is being recorded, what type of database is being used, is it secure or not secure? Is card data, is it publicly available, or it is encrypted during transmission, and so on. So that's another layer. And the third layer is obviously that we want to make sure that the whole operating system and access to the machines, that means that actual hardware, that is secure from the logical point of view. And the fourth level is that, are they physically secure? Yes. Where are they? Are they co-located in the colo facility, or they are housed in within a room? So is that data center secure? Then we also make sure that the people who are working on it, they know what they're doing. So that means there are good policies and procedures around it. So that's another layer that we want to make sure that the people know how and what they can do and what they cannot do. There is a policy that on the need to know basis, the information is only shared when there is a need to share. And then last thing is that we monitor. So this is all these 12 requirements are for. So we deal with people, process, and technology to make sure that this is the right thing we are doing. It also includes that if you are hiring someone for a job which is quite sensitive, then have you vetted what is the HR process? So it's very, very detailed process which covers people, process, and technology. And then that's how you can maintain the security. So simplified version of 3.1, we want to make sure that there are firewalls around the, the whole environment. And we know that we didn't just bring it from the shop and just inserted the boxes in the network. No defaults mean that all the standard, for example, logins are changed and someone has looked at it and not, it's not that they just brought the system something from outside and just put it on there. And then protect the data when it is stored. So that means in the database or any emails or any phone calls, information you are there, all the data which is sitting there in your archival or in your systems, that is secure. And if we are transmitting data from one place to another place, that is secure. It is encrypted. We use antivirus. We use apps. If we are doing any software development, then we ensure that we are using secure software development processes, not the standard one. Like I already said, restrict access means that information is only shared with those who really need it. It's not that it is available to anyone. Authenticate access. One more thing, when we talk about security, actually it is a lot of details and I can go on and on for weeks in information security. One more thing is which has become very important after confidentiality, integrity, and availability is the auditability. Is that who has access to that information so that we can do forensics later. So that's why in these standards, we make sure that there is authentication access. At least I can say that, look, it was you who has accessed the data. It was not someone else. How can I prove that? By making sure that there is an authentication process and there's a monitoring process and it is logged somewhere. And again, most important, we have our policies. What is the role of QSA? Like our role is not that we come in and do audit. No, we do assessments. The role is that we sit down with you and explain where is the gap within your environment and what is the risk of that gap. And we see that we look at it and we identify that what sort of controls you need to put in place. And obviously we're talking about PCI DSS. If you are, then we ensure that every single requirement in PCI DSS is helping to securing your business. It's not there for, just for the sake of compliance. And then that's the role of QSA. A good QSA's role is to make sure that you cross the line and they work with you to ensure that your environment is secure as per your requirement. As you know, standard can be very different. So it is important that, and when I say different, it means that it can be applied differently to a very small organization to a very large bank, but it's the same requirement. So just not that they read the letter of the law, but they also understand the intent of the requirement so that they are doing the right thing. And they are implementing the technology as per whatever the cost is involved. I don't want to, obviously put a control which requires $10,000, whereas my data only worth, let's say, $200. So for example, I won't take the insurance of the car for, $200,000 insurance if the car only worth 50K. So I need to find a balance that what sort of controls we are putting in using the PCI DSS standard. And then write the report, which is called ROC, and also issue a certificate, which is called attestation of compliance. This is the role of the QSA. It is PCI DSS implementation. Once it is done, it's not then it's done and over. It's a regular process. It needs to be reviewed only on the yearly basis. And it means that you need to be compliant. So there's a continuous compliance process. It's not the process, which means it's a one-time process. And for the continuous compliance process, we need to ensure that quarterly scans are done, or making sure that stuff is complete, reviewed on a regular basis. If there are new threats, then those are taken care of, and so on. We have used a lot of acronyms here: IDS, IPS, SIEM solution, and this. And this is all type of technologies which help in making sure that it's compliant. Firewall, as you know, like it's a gatekeeper, that all the incoming and outgoing traffic is monitored and making sure that this is they are legit and they are not the ones who are causing harm. IDS is intrusion detection system. IPS is intrusion prevention system. Technology is changing every day, so you can see different acronyms. It's not that we are talking of a particular technology. We're talking of making sure there is control against that risk which we identify. SIEM solution means that endpoint, there are endpoint solutions. Making sure that that if the information is stored somewhere, its integrity is maintained. So that is FIM, file integrity monitoring, and so on. So I think I won't. That is a very, very high level overview to make sure that what PCI DSS is. It's a very involved process, and it changes the whole organization and actually the culture of the organization, so that they know that they sometimes have to change the way they perform their duties, because we want to highlight, this standard highlights the risks, and you need to make sure that they are compliant. So very happy to answer any questions you might have, or you can reach out to us on these email addresses as well. So again, thanks Nicole and Spark for providing me the opportunity to discuss this, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you, Dr. Aftab. This is absolutely a fantastic overview of everything related to credit card and credit card payment. So much information, so many things that are happening in the background that we don't realize as we tap our card and make a simple purchase. So thank you so much for that. If anybody has any questions, now would be the time to ask those questions. You can just put them in the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer those. While we're waiting, I do think... Okay.
Hi, Nicole. I just wanted to add here that please correct email ID for us for questions. It's Farham, KHURRAM.Abbas, ABBAS @risk-associates.com. Thank you.
Okay, I will correct that. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Dr. Aftab has done that. Perfect. Thank you so much. As we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, I do have one small question, Dr. Aftab. Some people use what's called the square in their small business because they don't really have a storefront. They don't want to carry a big payment machine. How does that fit in with everything that you've shared with us?
It really doesn't change anything. You see that any device or any method, whether it's ATM or FPOS or a Square or whatever you want to say, it's a device which is taking the card information. So that is a point of interaction.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that and like I said, the journey starts that when the system or the environment takes the card number and other details like track data, and processes all the way to the back end and to the payment brand, and then comes back and send the authorization. So we want to ensure that this information is secure, whether it is stored in this machine, in this box, in this device, or whatever it is, or the communication channel where it is, the link, it's a PSTN line or whatever line it is, and so on. So nothing changes, but the risks are different, and that means different control or different technology will be required to make sure that they are secure. Okay. Otherwise, basic understanding or basic underlying fact is same. Yeah.
Okay, so so I guess the PCI DSS standard compliancy would not necessarily be on my part, but it would be on the company's part, like the Square's part. Correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now we do have a question.
It's still in the beginning, it's still, as a merchant, you will have certain process which you need to comply to. And that will be asked by the company or by yourself. You need to provide the guidelines to the staff what they should do or what should not do, and the training to them that why we are doing this and why card information is important, and how the system will not be compromised.
Okay, perfect. We do have a few questions. The first one is from Jason, and what he is asking is, what would be the approximate cost for using a risk associate for PCI compliance certification?
Very good question, and a very difficult one. It depends on how long is the piece of string. If you've got only one machine and one FPOS machine and you're dealing with that, it will be different, as opposed to you've got call center where there are 200 people working there, and the type of application so I think we can have a chat to understand the scope. Like I said, the scope is very important, and the scope is determined that how the information is coming in, how it is going out, and where you're storing, who is accessing, and so on. Unless we don't know the scope, it's very difficult to say. It's like any project that you need to know the scope before you can advise any costs. So Jason, I'll be happy to, I'd love to have a chat with you and discuss that what's the best way to move forward.
Okay, fantastic. We have a question from Karthik. The question reads, we are looking to integrate with multiple partners to let our clients pay their invoices. Some are PCI compliant and some are not. How do we handle this?
This is becoming more and more difficult nowadays because onus is on you, or if you're taking that money. So this is how PCI DSS handles the situation as well, that they want to ensure that the contracts you have with the payment processors, you make sure that they comply to whatever needs to be compliant. Means if there's a need to comply, for them to comply to PCI DSS, they should be compliant. But one thing you need to really know, that this particular standard, which is PCI DSS standard, is revolving around the card data. So if you're taking money through, online banking, that the money is directly transferred into your bank account, then PCI DSS is not applicable directly from that point of view, but it will be applicable on the bank side or wherever these things are happening. So again, the situation is that if and this is where the payment processors are involved. Most of the payment processors are not able to operate or function if they are not compliant, because Visa and MasterCard won't let them do it. But still, there could be some new ones who are not compliant. So I think it should be reviewed on a case-to-case basis. From your point of view, it is extremely important to make sure that when you have an agreement or a contract with a third party for this type of operations, then you ensure that you are secure and you have got the right clauses in there, so that the onus is on them for the compliance. Or if it's your responsibility, then you clearly know that where you stand and how much compliance work you need to do. So again, maybe it's not an answer in black and white, but again, it depends on the case-to-case basis. There are so many payment processors or third-party available who are offering this service, and it's a blend of, it's a complex thing that, who's responsible for. But we can discuss that what they should do in which situation.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other questions? This is your last call before we finish this. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. Oh, wait, Karthik has a follow-up question. Yes, absolutely. You definitely can have a follow-up question.
Thank you, Dr. Aftab. So my follow-up question to my previous question is that, are there ways or methods that as a platform that we should adhere to when we actually are looking to solve such a problem? Like, has there been case studies or something where we have both PCI compliant and non-PCI compliant partners to whom we might have to transact with?
Yes, there are. It's very well-defined area. And again, depending on the scope you have, And the platform you, for example, are you storing card data? Are you dealing with it? Or you know, somehow there's involvement that you are required to be PCI compliant as well. If you are required to comply to PCI DSS, then you certain requirements that you definitely need to meet this PCI DSS standard yourself.
Okay.
And then there is a clause in this standard which deals with a third party. So that third party you're dealing with through contractual requirements. And in some cases, you need to go and really audit them. And there are, in certain cases where there is a lot of risk, it is in the contract that they can assign someone to review their environment to ensure that they do comply to the same set of policies or procedures or better, which you adopt. So there are certain things which can be done. And uh, if the third party is already PCI compliant, it's easier for you. But if they are not compliant, then obviously you need to make sure that that you have got the right contract in place, and whatever part you are doing is still compliant. Otherwise, like I said in the beginning, that onus lies on you that the whole thing is uh, compliant.
Okay.
But it should be a combination of whose responsibility is what, clearly identifying it, and clearly identify, making sure that it is through the legal channels. You have covered this process, and you have done your job, and they are doing their job.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Sorry, just another comment on this one. So third-party compliance will be dealt on the individual basis. So third party one, you will have a different contract if they are compliant, and party two, if they are non-compliant, it will be a different contract and different relationships. So it will be dealt in that way.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for attending our webinar today. And thank you, Dr. Aftab, for providing us with such great, fantastic information.